There are so many different ways to cast on in knitting. One of the best ways to cast on for a totally invisible seam is by using the Provisional Cast On. Hi, I'm Hannah from knitting.com, and today we're learning how to do the Provisional Cast On. As its name suggests, the technique requires you to create a temporary cast on row. Note the word provisional. There are a few ways you can do a provisional cast on. Today, we're going to use the crochet chain method. We're using a crochet hook to cast on stitches using a length of waste yarn. Later, you'll be able to undo the temporary cast on row in order to rethread those stitches onto knitting needles, ready to either knit in the other direction or seam together. If you're ready to get started, let's go. Today we're going to do a provisional cast on using a crochet hook. What you'll need is one of your knitting needles, crochet hook, a piece of waste yarn, so this is yarn that we're just going to use to cast on that first row, and then your project yarn, which is what you'll use to knit the rest of your project. For now, all we need is the waste yarn, your crochet hook, and one of your knitting needles. The first step in a provisional cast on is creating a slip knot. So I'm just going to tie one very quick slip knot, and we're going to put it over the crochet hook. Tighten that up. So now that the slip knot is on the crochet hook nice and snugly, but there's still room for it to move, we're going to pick up our knitting needle. Now, grab the cut end, so the yarn tail, in your hook hand. We won't be using that, it's just to anchor it and keep it out of the way. Bring the working yarn behind your knitting needle and the crochet hook in front. Now we're going to create our first cast on stitch. Grab the yarn with the crochet hook, remember up and over the knitting needle. So we've wrapped it all the way around, and then pull it through your slip knot. And I'm going to create a little bit more slack here. You want that stitch to rest on the knitting needle, but not be so tight that it's hard to move. And then we're going to take that yarn back around to the back again. And then we're going to grab it again to make a second cast on stitch with the hook. So hook in front, yarn in the back, and then pull it through. So we've got 2 stitches. Bring our yarn to the back again, pick it up, and pull it through. You're going to do this as many times as you need to for your project. In this case, I'm just going to go a few more times so we have enough to look at. And the last step of provisional cast on is to go ahead and chain a few stitches on just your crochet hook to give you some room and kind of bind it off. So we're going to just grab the yarn. It's not behind the knitting needle again, it's just in front. Grab the yarn and pull it through once. We're going to grab the yarn again and pull it through a second time. And then one more for good measure. So again, we're grabbing the yarn, we're going to pull it through. Now, we're going to cut the yarn, and that's our waste yarn. We're all done. We don't need to use this anymore. Pull the yarn all the way through that last stitch to anchor it. And now we don't need this crochet hook anymore, so we're going to put that away. So now you can see you have 5 stitches on your knitting needle. This is where you started, and this is where you ended. And when you go to undo this, and I'll show you how to do that later, you're going to undo that slip that we just did. So pull that end out of this end where we've done that crochet chain. So this is a good indicator of which end you unzip from when you're ready to take the provisional cast on out. All right, so we've got our provisional cast on stitches here. We've got our project yarn ready to go. And to knit into a provisional cast on, it's the same as a regular cast on row. If you're knitting, you'll go through the front loop. If you're purling, you'll go down through the front loop. In this case, I'll knit. So I'll knit these 5 stitches. So I'll treat this as a regular stitch. Whatever's on the needle is a cast on stitch. So to do that, we're going to insert the needle, wrap the yarn around, and it goes the other way. There we go. And you're just going to pull it through to make 1 knit stitch. And slip that off. Again, Wrap the yarn around, pull it through, slip it off. So we're going to knit all 5 of these stitches, like so. So it's a regular row of knitting, and you can see already here that our provisional cast on has created this series of live loops at the end where the 2 yarns meet. And that's the part, this light green part is the part you're going to take out when you're ready to pick up these stitches at the end. So in order to take the provisional cast on out and release these stitches and make them live again so you can pick them up with another knitting needle, we'll use this one. You're going to first remember which side you ended on with your provisional cast on. And that's why we create this little bit of a tail, and that is to make it a little bit easier to see which side to undo. So if you undo from the side, you're gonna have to unthread it in a much slower way. Working from this direction, all you're going to do is you're going to find that yarn tail where we pulled it through the last stitch, and you're going to pull it back out of that last crochet chain, like so. And now that we've released that crochet chain, we should be able to just unzip it by pulling on the yarn tail until it gets to there, back up to our knitting. And you can see here's our last stitch that was on the knitting needle. Now, we're going to want to pick that up, and I like to pinch my project fabric above the provisional cast on. That way there's no chance of the stitch unraveling or losing it in the fabric. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull on that one more time. So now you can see here that there is a live project stitch here, and then the provisional cast on here in the next stitches. Now note that the knitting loop here, the knit stitch, is laying flat. You want to insert your knitting needle through it from right to left, like so. So we're not twisting it. It's not going to be a twisted stitch. You're not going to go in this way. Instead, you're going to go in the direction, same direction as your other needle. And then we're going to, again, gently pull on this waste yarn tail again. So pull that to release the next stitch and slip that onto the knitting needle as well. So now they're both facing the same direction. We're going to do it for the last 3 of them. Remember, we did 5 stitches in total. So now, see, there's the next stitch. I'm going to put that knitting needle through it as well. So you're just releasing them in order. Okay, and this gets a little bit trickier. I'm just going to do the last 2 at the same time. So I'm going to pull that yarn all the way out. And now I've got the last 2 stitches released. I'm going to insert the knitting needle through both of them. And now we have 2 sets of live stitches at the top and the bottom of this piece. And once you're ready to join the next piece of knitting, you'll hold it up to this side and you'll either knit them all together or do the Kitchener stitch. There's a couple of different ways you can join fabric, or you can just keep knitting. So some projects will have you do this at the back neck seam maybe of a cowl that is mirrored, or a neckband on a sweater, or this could even be a shoulder join. So you could be going both different directions instead of joining them later. There's a couple different reasons why you'd use a provisional cast on, and all of them are pretty cool. And that was how to do the provisional cast on. The provisional cast on is one of the more complicated techniques. However, there's really nothing like it. So if you need to pick up stitches or create an invisible join, this is the cast on to choose. Just take it slow and easy, you'll be just fine. Even after years of knitting, most knitters need to pull up a quick tutorial as a refresher on how to work a provisional cast on. So you're in good company. If you found this tutorial helpful, be sure to click the thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Subscribe to knitting.com if you'd like to stay in the loop, and check out our other social media channels. Until next time, happy knitting.